General in South Dakota, a Mr. Jason Ravnsborg. That should be happening here in about 3 minutes. And a reminder, after I share this link out here real quick, we have a pre-convention Zoom meeting February 25th, and we'd encourage everybody to participate in that. Should be a good time. Greg made a cool graphic. So yeah, definitely come up to our Zoom meeting
next Thursday.
At 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. There's an event on the Libertarian Party of South Dakota Facebook page with the Zoom link in it. So that's where you click to join. And also another reminder, while we're waiting for the announcement, Corrigan Larson is going to be on our podcast Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. He's currently running for legislator in 2022. So that should be interesting. He also manages our Instagram account, which is pretty awesome of him. He's brought it to like 500 followers in like a couple months. So
since all of us boomers, all of us boomers don't know how to do the Instagram.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got waiting for the stream from the press conference here.
Waiting for the announcement that is going to send shockwaves through South Dakota.
What do you think is going to happen at the announcement, Greg?
I think they're going to make a long statement, but at the end of it, they're going to say we have chosen not to pursue charges in this matter.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to go too. I hope not, but
it doesn't take 5 months to come to this conclusion, and then to have this big fancy press conference.
Yeah,
it just reeks of not guilty, basically.
I think they're gonna argue some bullcrap like, well, there's technically no crime that being distracted and hitting somebody with your car unless you're on drugs, so he's gonna walk.
I also think that this whole case should have went in front of a grand jury and because what's going to happen now is like literally the choice of whether to charge him or not is going to fall on one person, and so this guy gets to make that decision. But at least if it would have went to a grand jury, the grand jury could have heard all the evidence and then they could have decided.
Yeah,
it would have been a much fairer arrangement than just one crony getting to I mean, maybe we'll be proved wrong, but I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's 1:30 now. Should be live already, but they're still not going yet. Let me check the other news stations and see if there's anything happening. Nothing yet. Oh, actually, you know what? I should turn the audio on for that, huh? That'd be a good thing. Probably gonna need that.
Yeah.
Share audio. Share.
Well, South Dakota Public Broadcasting went live just now.
Hey, send me the link to them. I'll use them instead.
Oh, I gotta find it. It went away. It popped up and then it went away. Oh, oops.
See if it's on.
All right.
Can you send it to me?
Yeah, I sent it to you just now. Get it?
Yeah.
I don't know why Christy Noem's giving the update. I thought the update was being given by the the district attorney or
Okay.
whoever that was doing the investigation.
Oh man, it's going. It's going. Here we go. Oh my god. Why can't I find it?
No,
Um.
I mean we could share my
Instruction is
screen, but
separate
Oh
law.
shit.
there
Is
you
that
go.
it?
There was no delay
Can
by
you,
the
oh crap! I
prosecutors.
can't hear it though. Ah!
It was a smart decision for prosecutors to
I can hear it.
Oh crap! I just clicked out of it. I'm so dumb.
I can hear it.
Oh, you could hear it. Okay. Um. Let me find it again. Why is Argus Leader and Kellerman not doing this? I already had them up on standby. Okay, here we go.
we are not going to delve deeply into the evidence of this case.
That's not sounding good so
As
far.
you were made aware,
There we go.
September 12th of 2020, Jason Ravnsborg was the driver of a Ford Taurus that struck and killed Joseph Beaver of Highmore, South Dakota. Ravnsborg was the sole occupant of a Ford Taurus at the time of the accident, and it occurred within Hyde County, just west of Highmore city limits. It's also been disclosed to you previously that that impact occurred outside of the lane of travel on the north shoulder of Highway 14. The Attorney General's 911 call was made at 10:24 on the night in question. And after local law enforcement arrived on scene, a tow truck was called to tow Ravnsborg's vehicle. Due to the expected wait time of the tow truck, Ravnsborg was lent a courtesy vehicle to return to his home in Pierce, South Dakota.
By who? The sheriff.
Courtesy
Morning
cop
after
car.
the accident, Ravnsborg returned the vehicle that had been borrowed to him by law enforcement the night prior. And in the process of returning that car, the Attorney General assessed the area near the debris where the accident had occurred. It was at that time that he located the body of who was later determined to be Mr. Joseph Beaver. Ravnsborg reported his findings to local law enforcement, who then worked to secure the scene and called for an outside agency assist. Based upon Ravnsborg's position as our South Dakota Attorney General, the outside agency assist for the investigation was made by our neighbor to the north, the North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and that agency headed this investigation throughout. Accident reconstruction has been provided by our local South Dakota Highway Patrol, and both agencies have carefully and thoroughly investigated this matter. And the reports have been now made available to and reviewed by the Hyde County State's Attorney's Office, as well as the assisting state's attorneys. Again, due to the high-profile nature of this case, full-time State's Attorney Michael Moore, who is with me today, of Huron, South Dakota, as well as Pennington County State's Attorney Mark Vargo, have generously shared their time to help review. I know there's going to be some questions about the obvious absence of.
Did you hear that? Your
State's Attorney
overlord
Crystal
generously
Johnson, who
donated
was originally
his time.
assisting as well. When they had the transition of office with Minnehaha County State's Attorneys, the new administration needed all hands on deck, and that is an extremely busy office. I understand that. And regardless of that transition, she provided a plethora of knowledge. She shared a lot throughout the process, and I would like to sincerely thank her and all of the assisting state's attorneys for that same.
What are we thanking
With
people
that,
for?
I will read to you the complaint against Jason R. Ravnsborg.
We'll
It
complain.
states that on or about the 12th day of September
That
in
sounds like a
2020,
charge.
Hyde County, State of South Dakota, Jason R. Ravnsborg did commit the following offenses.
Ooh.
Count 1, operating a motor vehicle while using a mobile electronic device in violation of SDCL 32.
Texting while driving? It better be more than just that.
In that the defendant did operate a motor vehicle east of Highmore city limits while using a mobile electronic device. Count 2, lane driving in violation of SDCL 32-26-6. In that the defendant did, while driving a motor vehicle on a roadway divided into 2 lanes, fail to drive said vehicle as nearly as practicable entirely within a single lane, and did move from such lane without first ascertaining that such movement could be made safely. Count 3, careless driving, in that the defendant did drive a vehicle upon a highway without due caution, at a speed or in a manner so as to endanger any person or property, not amounting to reckless driving as defined by 32-24-1. All contrary to the statute in such case made and provided against the peace and dignity of the state of South Dakota.
You better be flipping more pages.
All of the charges are misdemeanor charges.
What?
Yeah,
And you will
that's
note
it.
when you review this publicly filed document that Mr. Ravnsborg is charged with operating a motor vehicle while using a mobile phone, electronic device.
Are you kidding me?
That occurred east of Highmore city limits, and as you all well know, the accident in question occurred west of Highmore city limits. All evidence indicates to us that the Attorney General was not on his phone at the time of the accident.
What?
The evidence does indicate, however, that Ravnsborg was outside of his lane of travel. I know there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of questions about whether there would be some type of a homicide or a manslaughter charge in this case. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of evidence for you, but what I'm going to do is clarify those statutes.
You gotta be kidding me right now, dude.
For a vehicular homicide in South Dakota, it requires that one be under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or substances in a manner and a degree prohibited by law without design to affect death, but that ultimately, after negligent actions, results in the death of another human being. That's simply not applicable in this case. The
Well, it's
toxicology
convenient
reports
because
were
you never
previously
blood
released.
tested him.
The Attorney General was not under the influence of any alcohol or drugs.
You don't know that.
You don't know that.
There were questions about the delay in the blood draw. There was a very, very thorough investigation conducted for every step that was taken by him in the hours preceding, and nothing was indicative of him being under the influence of any alcohol or drugs.
But you didn't.
Then why not
test
take the blood draw
With
then?
respect to the speculation on a manslaughter charge, I will explain to you that in South Dakota, SDCL 22-16-20 states, any reckless killing of one human being, including an unborn child, by the act or procurement of another, which under the provisions of this chapter is neither murder nor manslaughter in the first degree, nor excusable nor justifiable homicide, is manslaughter in the second degree. That is a class 4 felony. There is a very specific articulation of what reckless means within the provisions of that manslaughter statute.
texting and driving
The
and
state
leaving.
must import
lane
a
is
conscious and
reckless.
unjustifiable disregard of a substantial risk that the offender's conduct may cause a certain result or may be of a certain nature. A person is reckless with respect to circumstances when he consciously and unjustifiably disregards a substantial risk.
Like switching lanes with somebody on
Our
the
high courts
shoulder?
have explained that for someone's conduct to be deemed reckless, it's more than just a mere ordinary negligent standard.
That's why they didn't charge him with
Operation
reckless
of a motor
driving.
vehicle
It
in
was just
violation of a
careless
law is
driving
not
because they
in
want
and
to
of itself
differentiate
sufficient
this
to
reckless.
constitute the recklessness required for that manslaughter statute, even if a person is killed as a result thereof.
Wow. Wow.
I know that for every prosecutor, there's likely a very visceral reaction to traffic accidents that result in fatalities. Prosecutors' jobs, however, are to look at the facts, look at the evidence,
Which you clearly didn't do.
apply the laws and the standards that they're provided. And that's exactly what's been done in this case.
No, it's not.
This time, I'm going to defer over to Mr. Moore, and then we'll take the opportunity to answer a few questions.
Thank you. As Emily stated, my name is Michael Moore. I'm the state's attorney in Beadle County. I've served as state's attorney in Beadle County since 1997. First, I'd just like to send my sympathies and prayers out to the family
Dude,
of
shut the
Joseph
fuck
Beaver.
up.
This is
You do not
obviously a
care about
tragic,
that family.
incident that took his life way too soon. I'd also like to echo the comments that the investigation was second to none. I've been involved in numerous homicide cases.
We investigated
My 20+
ourselves and
years of
found no
prosecution.
wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Numerous
What a joke.
sexual assault cases, numerous cases similar to this where there's vehicle pedestrian accidents. And the investigation done in this case by the North Dakota Bureau of Investigation, the Highway Patrol, and the accident reconstructionists, they went well above and beyond what I've ever seen in an investigation before. Anything that was asked of them by the prosecution team, they did it. They did it in a timely manner. They provided us what we asked for in order for us to make a decision. I did get to visit with the victim's family this morning. They obviously don't like our decision in this case. But as we all know, that victims don't make that decision. That's why there's independent review. That's why there's prosecutors that are elected by the people. That's our job. We owe it to not only to Joe Beaver, but to the Attorney General Ravnsborg to do an unbiased, fair
Oh my God,
facts
dude.
and apply it to the law.
Oh my God.
That's why Emily put together the team that she did.
It's
Recall
not
all
unbiased.
these
For
Beavers.
The
input,
whole thing
and the
was
decision was then
biased.
finally hers. I'm going to make some comments. My comments will be strictly to the fact of whether Ravnsborg is responsible, criminally responsible, for the death of Joseph Beaver.
Well, yeah, he's going to be sued for sure in civil court
Emily talked a little bit about the laws. There's a couple of things I want to point out.
because
as
he
I'm
is
discussing
responsible.
this. Vehicle homicide, she mentioned. That requires the driver of the vehicle to be intoxicated, either under the influence of alcohol or drugs. But it also requires the driver to drive in a negligent manner.
When you're not in the lane, you're
And
being
I think
negligent.
that is important to know that it not only do you have to be intoxicated, but you also have to be negligent. A lot of people don't realize that. In those cases, in the
Texting
state
and
of South
driving
Dakota,
is
negligence can be defined as a traffic violation. So if that intoxicated person is speeding, if they're driving outside the lane, we can bring that prosecution. But if we don't have any negligent driving, we are prohibited from bringing that prosecution. In this case, that law does not apply because Ravnsborg was not intoxicated at the time. But keep in mind the negligent part. Also, many states throughout this country have a negligent homicide law. South Dakota does not. Thus, that law doesn't exist here. We cannot apply that law.
Well, we better make the Ravnsborg law.
And I just want to mention that this has been, in my field as prosecution, we've known this for years. The legislature is aware of this. And the last time a negligent homicide bill was presented to the legislature, I think was in 2006. It was House Bill 1108, and it was defeated in committee. I believe the vote was 10-2. And one thing about that House bill was, if it would have passed, it specifically excluded traffic accidents as negligent homicide. So that leaves us as prosecutors with reviewing manslaughter in the second degree. Emily read you what that is, the reckless killing of another person. She read to you what reckless was defined as in this state. So with that in mind, I'll go over a few facts that I believe are relevant to that discussion. First, Ravnsborg was the driver of the vehicle that struck and killed Mr. Beaver. Ravnsborg was the sole occupant of that vehicle.
Oh, it's generous of you to.
He was
admit
traveling
that
about
fact.
67 miles an hour at the time of impact.
Well, speeding.
Based on the accident reconstruction and doing the math on that, if you're traveling 67 miles an hour, you're going about 98 feet per second. And those numbers are important when we're doing the accident reconstruction when we talk about time. The impact happened outside the lane of travel, just west of Highmore. At the time of the impact, Ravnsborg was not a distracted driver. And we know that because his phones were analyzed. He had two phones with him.
Well, then why did he hit the guy?
His phones were
why did he hit somebody and not know who he hit
15
or
seconds
what he
prior
hit?
to the impact, which would have been east of Highmore. He traveled about approximately a mile in that 1 minute and 15 seconds. So I'll give you the numbers and the timeline on that. At 10:22 and 22 seconds p.m., the phones were locked. Approximately 1 minute and 15 seconds later, at 10:23:37, Ravensburg was west of Highmore and struck Mr. Beaver. Approximately 15 seconds later, at 22:23:52, Ravensburg vehicle was stopped. 14 seconds after that, at 10:24:06, Ravensburg's phone was unlocked. And 16 seconds after it was unlocked, at 10:24:22, the 911 call was made. We know from the phone records that Ravensburg walked the area of the accident. He actually walked by where Mr. Beaver was.
So he saw the
He
body?
was using his flashlight on his phone at the time.
So he walked by the
The
body.
Hyde County Sheriff also walked the area about 10:44 p.m. Should note that the thorough investigation, we were unable to determine why Ravensburg was outside the lane of travel, how long he had been outside the lane of travel, or whether Ravensburg knew he was outside the lane of travel. So knowing those facts, we answer the question, did his conduct amount to recklessness under South Dakota law? As noted above, in order for him to be criminally liable for Mr. Beaver's death, the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Ravensburg's driving was reckless. Negligent driving would not be enough to amount to a criminal charge in the state of South Dakota. The people of South Dakota and the legislature have rejected the idea of criminal responsibility as it relates to negligent conduct. 31 years ago, Justice Henderson wrote, when presented with the question of criminal liability as related to the death as a result of an automobile accident, and I quote, "But if negligent or careless driving or a thoughtless omission spawns manslaughter prosecutions in this state, the courts will be flooded with all these types of prosecutions. If there is a vacuum in the law, i.e. a blind spot between manslaughter and careless driving, our legislatures at the state capitol should fill that gap." In response, as I noted before, to Justice Henderson and what he stated in that opinion, in 2006, the legislature specifically rejected the idea of negligent homicide. South Dakota Supreme Court has given prosecutors further guidance in this area. The Supreme Court stated, not every violation of the law or unlawful act in operation of a motor vehicle will render the operator criminally responsible for deaths which may result. Such an operator to be criminally responsible must evidence a disregard of human life or an indifference to the consequences of his acts. This is based on the sound principle that there must be found from the evidence some degree of culpability behavior or reckless disregard for the safety of others before a conviction may be sustained. Criminal responsibility for death resulting from operation of a motor vehicle in violation of the law will result only if the violation is done in such a manner as to evidence a reckless disregard for the safety of others. Mere carelessness or inadvertence or thoughtless omission is insufficient. The Supreme Court, since 1990, the Supreme Court has had the opportunity to address this issue further. In 1999, they said whether the conduct is perceived as negligent or reckless depends on the awareness of the risk the driver's behavior creates. In 2005, a reckless actor is aware of the risk
not using the lanes, I guess.
A negligent actor is not aware of the risk, but should
not risky.
As recently as 2012, the Supreme Court stated for someone's conduct to be deemed reckless for purposes of second-degree manslaughter, he or she must consciously disregard a substantial risk. Based on the Supreme Court guidance, the state must introduce evidence that would allow a trier of fact to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that the driver was aware of the dangerous nature of his conduct and disregarded it. When you apply the law, as I just stated, to the facts of this case, this is what you end up with. There's no evidence indicating that Ravensburg's travel outside the lane of travel was done in such a manner to suggest a reckless disregard for the safety of others. We do not know when Ravnsborg left the lane of travel. We do not know why Ravnsborg was outside the lane of travel. We do not know if Ravnsborg realized he was outside the lane of travel. We must
We
provide
just
evidence
don't
that would allow
know.
a trier of fact
5
to conclude that
months. We
Ravnsborg was
just don't
aware of
know.
the dangerous nature of his conduct.
You fucking
No
ask
such
him.
evidence exists.
Yeah.
At best,
We just
his
don't
conduct
know.
was negligent, which is insufficient to bring criminal charges in South Dakota. As I mentioned, this is a tragic accident which took the life of Mr. Beaver way too soon. The victim's remedy is in civil court, not criminal court. When the facts of a case fall well below the legal threshold for criminal charges, the case should not be presented to a grand jury. To do so would be a violation of prosecutors' obligations.
Wow.
I thought there were criminal
Thank you.
charges.
And again, thank you to all of the assisting state's attorneys in this case.
Wow.
At this
Oh,
time,
yeah,
we'll
thank
open it
you,
up for
thank you.
a few questions.
Austin Goss, Dakota
Thank
News
you.
Now. I wanted to ask, it sounds like you're saying that night the Attorney General walked by Beaver's body. Can you speak to exactly how long he looked and how that conversation went with him about seeing the body or finding the body or looking for something?
Again, we're not going to go into great detail about
About
interviews and that
anything of
sort of thing.
relevance or
What
importance.
was indicated through the phone records referenced was that there were steps taken. They would have been in the direction around and near where the body was located. Nothing was indicated that anyone that went past that scene on the night in question had seen Mr. Beaver's body.
So he just walked past it with his flashlight?
Did you ever receive any pressure from the Attorney General or the Governor's office or anyone else in South Dakota to make these charges?
Oh, she's gonna
I have
fucking
made it very
yeah,
clear
be
throughout the
honest about
statement that I have made a very, very specific point to separate the prosecutor's offices from any of the political officials. There's been no contact by the prosecutors with the Attorney General himself and no discussion.
So
Well, that's obvious because you
Yeah.
keep saying you don't know why.
Yeah. You didn't interview
Can you tell
him?
us where
Yeah.
Mr. Beaver's body was located in reference to the road, how far away it was from the pavement or on the shoulder?
I don't have the accident reconstruction mapping with me, but I will indicate that he was not very far outside of the lane of travel. He was off to the north shoulder.
Joe Sneevy, Argus leader. So I just want to make sure I understand this right. The charge about using a mobile device while operating a motor vehicle, that's based on the evidence you gathered for his conduct before he got to Highmore?
Correct. And as we indicated, this was an extraordinarily thorough investigation. So they had tracked essentially everything that he had done throughout the.
Oh, so
the trip
he's guilty of
from- he was
being
coming
on the
from Redfield that
phone,
night.
but just
The
not
charge
when the
relating to the phone
accident
use
occurred.
was east of Highmore city limits and not relevant at the time of the impact.
If I can follow up with that, I think you said he was going 67 miles per hour at the time of impact. Was that the number? you
Yes, and
heard?
it was in a 65-mile-per-hour zone.
So why not a speeding charge?
Yeah, I think there's a reasonable degree of latitude that all prosecutors exercise when it comes to a 65-mile-per-hour zone. And I don't know very many folks that haven't gone 66 or 67 miles per hour in a 65-mile-per-hour zone.
Yeah, because charging him with speeding
Wow.
would be another sign of negligence. He was speeding on his phone.
Do you know why the Attorney General wasn't able to see Joseph Beaver when he was driving? Can you speak to that?
What I can speak to is that the description of that night, it was a very dark night. This was in a rural area. It's
Every
not
night's
well,
dark.
Lit by any
He was carrying a
artificial
flashlight.
means. I think that there's lots of individuals that were passersby or that investigated or
This was a really dark
that
night.
they don't realize why he was not
The
observed.
darkest of
It was a
nights.
dark night, and we don't have the answer to
Oh
that.
my God, dude. Oh my God.
Just to branch off that, I think Lee was meaning, what was he doing at the time of impact? Why didn't he see Joseph Beaver walking on the road?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. I don't have the answer to that.
Austin Goss, Dakota News Now. Can you tell us what the maximum penalty is for each of those 3 charges?
Each of the charges, as I indicated, is a misdemeanor offense. Each of them has a maximum of 30 days in incarceration in county jail, a $500 fine, or both of those things.
Yeah, my God, dude.
Immediately prior, while the highway goes through Highmore, the speed limit drops to 45 miles an hour. Does your telemetry data reveal how fast he was going through the 45 mile an hour zone?
I'll defer over to Mr. Moore. I don't recall offhand if we assessed. I don't remember it being any.
I thought this was the most thorough investigation
overwhelming
you've ever
degree of
done.
Acceleration, but I will defer if he has any other better answer.
No, the evidence and the reconstruction indicated to us that he slowed down at the 45 mile per hour zone to approximately 45 miles an hour. When he got to the 65 mile per hour zone, he started speeding back up. And that's what we've had from the reconstruction.
We need to take some questions on the phone. We're going to unmute the phone lines right now. Go ahead on the phone.
Ariel with the Journal.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yes. So my two-part question. One is, how is he going to be? Is there an arrest warrant? Does he have plans to turn himself in? And part two is if this was a random person, would they have been arrested and charged first and then investigated after, or would it have been like this too, where they're living out in the community to do this extremely thorough investigation?
On live TV.
With respect to the first question, this has been charged out by complaint. It is highly likely that a special judge will be appointed and there will be an appropriate summons to court at that point in time. As to part two of your question, whether this would have been, somebody else would have been treated differently, the answer is no. Mr. Ravnsborg was treated no different than any other person would have been treated under these circumstances.
Another phone question?
Make sure to ask the.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you said that Ravnsborg was treated like anybody else. In this instance, it seems like he was treated much better. The sheriff allowed him to use his car to go back into town. And you also said the investigation was extremely thorough, but the investigation wasn't thorough at the very get-go, was it? If the sheriff didn't do a breathalyzer, if the sheriff didn't do a complete look around the accident area with, the high-powered flashlights that they normally have. So isn't it true that this sheriff made your jobs a lot harder and made it a lot more difficult for evidence to be gathered that might have helped you prove the elements of the crimes that could have shown that the Attorney General was responsible for the death of Mr. Beaver?
Well, with any
like that guy.
investigation, hindsight is 20/20, and things can always be done differently after we know what has occurred. To play Monday morning quarterback and say that something should have been different, I don't know. This was a
no, you do
call-out
know,
to
and there's a bunch of shit that
scene
shouldn't
in
happen.
a rural area.
Yeah.
Like you don't just get to say,
if you
"Well,
listen
we
to the
don't
911
know."
tape. The audio indicates that the 911 operator purports that this is maybe a deer crash, and it would not be
He got
unheard
misdemeanor
of to have
charges,
law enforcement
basically.
go to a situation like that.
No
and if
real
they have somebody
charges.
that they know or are comfortable lending a vehicle to, it would not be unheard of.
Last question on the
But
phone
isn't
is
it
Black
true
Hills
that
Pioneer.
it was the dispatcher? It was the dispatcher who put the idea in the mind of Ravnsborg that he may have hit a deer, because in the transcript he says he doesn't know what he hit. Wouldn't it have been prudent by both Ravnsborg and the sheriff at that time to actually take a good look around to see if it was a person or if it was a wounded animal, to put it out of its misery, or so it doesn't impede traffic later on that evening?
With respect to law enforcement actions and how they were notified of the accident of what type, I'm certain that had there been suspicion that there was something other than a car deer accident, it would have been handled differently.
We're going to take two more
There
questions.
was suspicion.
Joe Snave from Argus Leader will begin.
Okay. Did you personally talk to Ravnsborg? And what did he say he was doing at the time of the impact? And secondly, is there any investigation or probe into the sheriff as well?
To my knowledge, none of the prosecutors have had any direct contact with Mr. Ravnsborg, specifically no contact with respect to the accident. And with respect to any inquiry on law enforcement, no, not to my knowledge.
Do you know what Ravnsborg told investigators he was doing at the time of the impact?
You know, I'm not going to go into the specific details of any interviews that were conducted.
Sounds like you didn't even
Austin, North
invest
Dakota
or
News
didn't
Now.
even do
It's
any interviews.
circulated that it was a possibility to use a grand jury in this case. If that was the case, can you say so? And then if it was an option, why wasn't it used?
Actually, I'll defer over to Mr. Moore. He had addressed that some in his statement.
Obviously, in South Dakota, we can charge by complaint, which means that in a case of a felony, there would be a preliminary hearing, or we can charge by an indictment, which is presenting a case to the grand jury, which prosecutors are under an ethical obligation to only present cases that we believe meet the facts, meet the law. In a case where we don't have it, we don't have the facts, we don't have the law, we can't present a case to the grand jury.
Oh, God, dude, what a joke.
An ethical violation on our part to do so. And in this case, as I mentioned, it was the facts fell well short of what we needed to reach recklessness. So there would be no use in presenting this case to a grand jury.
Dead body isn't evidence enough for
Is there
you?
any evidence that, or any indication that the body was moved at all? Was it in one place all night long?
Well, they're not going to say that.
There's no indication.
We don't know.
Can I get one question? Sorry. It sounds like at the conclusion of the investigation, there's still some questions that even you have as prosecutors in terms of, why Mr. Ravnsborg was driving outside the lane. At the end of this, can you tell me, are you still left wondering what happened and frustrated by some of the lack of knowledge that we might have in this
No,
case?
we think we did a great job, and I'd like to congratulate everybody involved. We should really.
I mean, obviously, when a person dies, we want to know what happened, and the investigation and by the facts.
Well,
and
we know what happened.
We can't compel someone to tell us. I mean, there's just nowhere else to go, and it's just when we don't have a negligent homicide law in this state, we're faced with recklessness. And recklessness, as I've read to you, is a extremely high burden for us to establish. And in this case, we don't have it. And I know it's not a, I don't feel good about it, but it's the right decision.
Before we finish, do you have any remarks before we depart or anything you'd like to clarify for the record?
I'll just follow up with very briefly with respect to the proceedings. Again, they will be public proceedings. I don't know the exact date that they will be presented to the court. I'm sure you will all be made aware of that as the case presents itself and goes forward.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's get through some of these comments. We got a lot of comments. Sean Gregory Rogers says, wish they would have been this thorough investigating marijuana. Yo, Dale says, what a joke. Anyone surprised? Not one bit. Yeah. Yeah, this is.
I was a little surprised that there were any charges at all, to be honest.
Yeah. I provided myself with a clean investigation. I've decided I'm innocent. Yeah, that's pretty much how that went down. Isn't it not knowing you hit someone being negligent? Like, I don't know how there can be a dead body and then there's not enough evidence to prove that there is recklessness. And they said that he was not driving in the lane. I'm sorry, but if I'm driving in the wrong lane, that's recklessness. And that's putting people's lives in danger. That's why there's freaking driving lanes. Sean says, even if he hit anything, isn't it negligent that he doesn't go back to see what he hit? Yeah. And I think that them saying that he walked past the body and the sheriff walked past the body and somehow didn't miss the body altogether. Like, how is that not being investigated? That sounds like a bunch of bull crap that was made up. And especially since the sheriff gave him his vehicle. Daryl says, they said traveling outside the lane constitutes negligence. They admit the victim was outside the lane of travel. Oxymoron. Yep. Yeah, there's so many weird legal circles that they're trying to jump through to make this sound legitimate, and it was just a bunch of bullcrap. Daryl says killing pedestrians is now legal in South Dakota. Travesty. Apparently so. Apparently it's always been legal according to them.
Unless you intended, unless she said something, that guy said something about your intentions, and it's like, what do you mean your intentions?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
How many people, how many like millennials who were hit somebody texting and driving in Sioux Falls have gotten charged? Like right away. Like, why didn't they come out with all this for them?
Yeah.
This is a blatant twisted story, rich privileged bull. If this was a man in a blue collar job, he would have been locked up with that. No, I have no doubt in my mind. Yeah, if this was any other one of us, he would have been. We'd probably be already in court. I smell Janklo in the room. Yup. Daryl says he fell asleep. I've argued all along. Possibility. They don't know because they didn't even speak with the guy, I guess.
Well,
apparently.
I will say Janklo actually did a little bit of time in jail. I don't even think Ravnsborg will.
Yeah, it sounds like they didn't want to know. Like they wanted to not know anything that would have forced them to press charges against one of their own. Wow, no questions about the body. Yeah, I think that was bullcrap. How they're just. That's kind of reminds me of Biden's press secretary. Like, we'll circle back at another time. Like, what do you mean? We're all here now. Why don't you just answer these simple questions about the case? Like, how hard is that? Daryl says, everyone in this state and elsewhere knows this is nothing but privilege at the highest. Yeah, this is good old Republican boy privilege. CJ says, as I told everyone, he took a sweetheart deal to stop defending Constitutional Amendment A and I am 26 to get off on vehicular homicide. I was right. Yeah, I don't know what happened. There's like
he didn't want to defend those anyways.
We don't know what happened. They don't know what happened. I guess they didn't want to investigate what happened. Sean says they danced around. People are asking important questions. They're dancing around those too. Same rich privilege case as usual. Yeah, this was definitely some privilege for Ravnsborg. And I liked how that one reporter brought up, like corrected her and said, well, this wasn't a very thorough investigation because you didn't give him a breathalyzer. You didn't find the body, but you walked past it, supposedly. You didn't use your high-powered beams to search the ditch.
Well, and he called him out because she was like, got treated the same as any regular citizen would. He called him out right away. He's like, he didn't get treated the same. I mean, you didn't even look for what he hit. You gave him a car to drive home in, you know, I mean.
Yeah. Daryl says, special kind of South Dakota, our special South Dakota kind of political stupid. Give me a break. A crime to back up a previous one. Yeah, dude. And I like how she laughed about how they weren't going to give him a speeding ticket for going 67 into 65, and then like laughed about how, well, I know everybody I know drives more than 65. Like, what?
Well, she didn't. The reason they didn't give him a speeding ticket, I mean, yeah, we get it. Like, you're probably not really going to get a speeding ticket for going 67. Yeah. But the reason you didn't want to give him that speeding ticket is because then, again, it proves more negligence because you just admitted that he committed a crime. He was going faster than the speed limit, you know?
CJ says the South Dakota Attorney General has killed more people than cannabis. Just saying. Yo.
We got some T-shirts that say that too, so get those.
Yeah, what's the link to that again? Teespring /
Teespring, Hedgehog Watchdog.
James Lund says, I know a guy that did the exact same thing as Jankel, got 8 years for a vehicular homicide. This was maybe 3 years after the Jankel case, just saying. Yeah, this case was a bunch of bull. Yeah, I just...
Well, I wonder now, the big question is, and I have a feeling it won't happen, but is Ravnsborg going to resign finally?
Yeah.
Because he's now been charged with a couple crimes. So how can you continue to,
Yeah, dude.
pretend like nothing happened?
He needs to resign, dude.
Yeah.
Daryl says there are 5 mile per hour leeway variations in speedometers and radar equipment.
Yeah, I could see that. Like I said, most people probably wouldn't get a ticket for it, but in this case, it's like, hey, we're trying to prove that this guy was negligent. It's like he was speeding, he was in the wrong lane. I mean, it all starts to add up, but when you just decide that this piece of information doesn't matter, that's what the government does, though.
Yeah, dude. It's just like the way they're saying, like, well, he wasn't on his phone. We know that because we checked the messages when the accident happened. And then it's like, do you know when the accident happened? Like, how do you know? We're going by Ravnsborg's word on when the accident happened. Like, the sheriff doesn't even know. Ravnsborg could have been there for 40 minutes trying to figure out what to do before. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there wasn't some car. They didn't say it, but I almost wonder if they didn't get some of that information from the car, because they were like, the car stopped at such and such a time.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? How do you know the car stopped at that time? So maybe their 5-month investigation included some car computer data or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'd like to see Ravnsborg retire, resign. I mean, I think Kristi Noem should have told him, she should have went on record and told him to resign. Like, she come out a month ago or whatever, and I don't know what's taking so long with this investigation. Like, why don't you just tell him to resign?
Yeah, dude, and it's just the way they're saying, like, there's no way, like, we can't prove that he was recklessly putting people's lives in danger because we checked the phone, so he wasn't on the, well, there's a dead body in the ditch. He recklessly put someone's life in danger.
Yeah.
Manslaughter, at least.
Well, for sure, the family didn't get the decision that they wanted, but they're gonna, I almost guarantee there's gonna be a civil lawsuit, and he will be held liable because he is liable for it,
Yeah. But this is a special, so probably gonna cut it short here. Just a reminder though, before everybody goes, there's going to be a big pre-convention online meetup on February 25th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So be sure to hit that Zoom link on the 25th of February. You can find that in the Libertarian Party of South Dakota Facebook page. And our convention's also going to be March 20th in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Set your dates. Take that day off work. Make sure you come. It's going to be a big one. We're electing all new executive committee officers. So if you want to run for any of these positions, I highly encourage you to do so. It's always good to have a good competition between every position, so we get like the best of the best. And that's everything I've got. You got anything else, Greg? I guess one more shout out to
plug the show this Sunday.
Corrigan Larson is going to be on Sunday at 7 p.m. for our regular broadcasting. He's running for House, I believe, for 2022. So be sure to come check that out. And we'll see you all next week. Or next week, this Sunday. We'll see you this Sunday at 7. Yeah. See ya.
Later.